Hey everybody, this is Amy here with Acronis, and I'm here with Louis Gudema, who is one of our marketing partner experts here at Acronis. We've partnered up with him several times, and Louis is going to tell you all about it, but we wanted to just have a conversation. We're going to talk about our summit coming up and what we're going to be doing there and all of the awesome content and training that Louis is bringing to the table. So, Louis, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why don't you give us an introduction and tell us a little about you and what you do?
All right. Well, I'm coming to you from Newton, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston. And I have a wife and adult daughter and a 5-month-old puppy. That's very large. 40 pounds on its way to 60 in just 5 months.
Oh my gosh, what kind of dog is it?
It's a sheepadoodle, which is a cross between an English sheepdog and a poodle.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
so it looks like a Holstein dog. It's black and white and very, very lively, a lot of fun. Glad that we have Mabel along with us. And so I've been working in marketing for 30 years or so, and I've worked with a whole range of companies, although tech companies is probably the bulk of them. Um, I mentor startups at MIT. I work with startups and growth stage companies and larger companies. I had an agency for a dozen years, and our biggest client was IBM, and we did several $1 million worth of work with them, and other tech companies as well, such as EMC and Cognos and others. Uh, so a pretty broad range of experience in marketing with tech companies. And what I do these days is help them in two major ways. One is either developing their marketing strategy or acting with some of my team as a fractional head of marketing. Because a lot of times smaller mid-sized companies won't have a a marketing leader. They may not have a team in place. And so we can help them with that as we're scaling up.
that's perfect. Now, do you niche in technology companies or do you work across different verticals?
Yeah, different verticals. I mean, one of the secrets about marketing that I'll tell you, Amy, if you promise not to tell anyone else,
Of course.
is that marketing is really the same everywhere. And yeah, the foundational elements of marketing are the same. What you have to do basically is the same. And what varies from industry to industry are the tactics or the specific channels, how you might reach customers in that particular industry. But even that, for example, now we're in this situation with COVID and the quarantine, and everything has changed so much in the last 5 months, 6 months, that what might have been, oh, this is the traditional playbook for this industry, you have to have changed significantly during that time. I've actually found over the years, some of my most successful work is the first time I'm working in a new industry, because I don't come in with any preconceptions of, oh, this is how it's done. This is what works and this is what doesn't work. And I come in fresh and I'm doing things that no one else in the industry is doing. And that often is the path to success in marketing: is don't copy, come in with fresh eyes.
That makes perfect sense. Tell me about some of the work you've been doing with tech companies here since COVID. What have you seen primarily shifting, if anything, in what organizations are having to do, starting to do to manage all of this virtually? I mean, we've gone from, I mean, your traditional selling has even gone virtual. So what are you seeing from a marketing perspective, the things that are shifting, and what are you seeing folks doing well, some of the things they're struggling with?
Well, I think to some degree, the tech industry is perfectly positioned to take advantage of this moment because what tech companies are good at is using technology. And marketing technology gives a company a huge leg up. And so if you're in a traditional industry where people aren't as comfortable with technology, aren't as comfortable with data, don't like Zoom meetings, don't have experience with that, then they're kind of like, oh boy, what do we do now? Whereas tech companies have always had an advantage. So software in particular, let me give you an example. Um, about 6 years ago, I did a study. I have a 9-point digital marketing scorecard that I developed actually while I was doing sales. So I had my own agency for a dozen years. I think I mentioned, that we did a lot of work with IBM and other companies. And then after had a successful exit from that, I was the VP of business development at two other agencies in succession. And I developed this 9-point digital marketing scorecard so that when we were contacted by a company, I could really quickly, in less than 5 minutes, get an idea of how sophisticated or robust their marketing was before I picked up the phone to talk with them. And I didn't want to lose much time because when you have a good contact, you want to, get back to them immediately within just a few minutes. But I could do this in a few minutes, and I could, by using certain tags and looking at their public presence, I could see, for example, did they have a marketing automation program in place? Were they using search ads? Were they active on social media? Back in 2014, when I first did this, I repeated it 4 years later. Um, did they have a mobile-friendly website, which most companies did not do? And what I found was this huge disparity between software companies and other industries. And the software companies on this 9-point scale had a median score of 7 out of 9. And then other industries like manufacturing and professional services and medical devices had a median score of 2.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah, it's
what's
a huge
but
disparity.
huge, and which was a shock to me. I was depressed for 2 weeks because I thought everybody knew about these tools that I had been using for years, and that so many tech companies in the Boston area, I just assumed everybody knew about. And then I found out most of the business world was literally not marketing. And these were SMBs. These were companies with 50 to 1,000 employees. So they weren't, teeny tiny companies. But then I asked, well, did that make any difference? And I went back to those software companies and studied, did the ones that had more robust marketing, did they grow faster?
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty much a perfect line. And the companies that scored 8 or 9 on the 9-point scale were growing 5 times faster than the companies scoring 0 to 3.
Wow.
And it literally just went straight up, 0 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, 8 to 9. And so it really was an affirmation of how important it is for a tech company to have a strong marketing program and to continue that, over time. And, getting back to your original question, um, I and other tech companies were doing virtual selling 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, over WebEx was the dominant platform at that time. And I can even remember as a small business owner, I was in a professional association, and a very successful tech entrepreneur was leading a group of small business owners to help us, with our companies. And it was kind of, if you were doing a deal for under 50,000 15 years ago, yeah, do it virtual.
Right.
And if it was a bigger deal, then you should probably travel. I actually studied it one time. I tracked 1 year. Did it make any difference if I traveled? Did my closing rate change? And it made no difference at all.
I love how centered around data you are. It's fascinating. because anecdotally, I mean, yeah, being in sales and marketing, there was always a delineation, do we, do this via inside sales? Do we do this with field reps? Do we send an executive somewhere? And all of that was determined, if you will, based on the qualification process that was happening with each touch point with that client. And this is literally the first time I've heard someone say, well, here's the data that shows even back then, before we started talking about virtual anything, it really didn't tip the scale whether we were virtually selling or not.
Yeah, and maybe if you're doing a $5 million deal or, a much bigger deal, or you have a 18-month selling cycle, these tended to be 3 to 6 month selling cycles. What I was, so the deals I had at my agency went up to $1 million, but over time we pivoted and became a SaaS agency that focused on, we developed our own content management system,
Okay.
and we focused on websites for small colleges and private schools, because that was a niche that needed websites with a good CMS.
Mm-hmm.
Once, one of the things about a website is, once you have that customer, if it's a bad year, the next year, they're not going to say, I think we're going to take our website down for a year until the economy recovers. Like, that's guaranteed income.
Right.
And so those deals were more in the 50,000 range. And those were the deals that I could close just as well remotely as traveling. But there were
Fascinating.
plenty of deals that I did at my agency and at the two other agencies afterwards that were six-figure deals that we did remotely also.
Right. Well, the reality is, if you're doing it well, I mean, you can connect with someone, um, whether it's a Zoom or not, whatever your platform is, you can still connect. Tell me about you. You've written a book about all this, correct?
I have.
Tell me about that.
Oh, you can't see it
Nah.
because it's blue. And so it it goes into the background. um, so it's a book called Bullseye Marketing, and it is 350 pages, full color, with over 100 color examples and illustrations in it. And you can get it on Amazon and elsewhere, where all good,
Book too?
available where good books are sold. I'm
Okay.
sorry, what
Can
did
I
you say?
get it in the ebook format too? Like,
Yeah, yeah. You can get there's a Kindle version. There is not an Audible version,
mm,
even though I listen to Audible books all the time, because it has so many illustrations and images in it. It just would not make sense if you couldn't see those. And sometimes I get these Audible books where they have a PDF where you also can see those, but I I haven't done it. Anyway, so Bullseye Marketing is about this approach that I developed um, over the last 6 or 7 years, because what I was finding was that a lot of things that were supposed to work weren't working. Things that got a lot of buzz in marketing weren't really working for my customers, and other things that were working weren't getting a lot of buzz. And I kind of thought of, how does that all, what's it all mean? And
mhm.
so things, and this is something I talk about. I'm doing three things for Acronis right now, which will kind of frame this. One is I'm doing a series of webinars on marketing, uh, and those focus around the Bullseye Marketing approach. And then for the summit, I'm leading two events. One is a panel uh, with three channel marketing leaders, and the second is a workshop kind of on Bullseye Marketing. Um, and um, so I realized that even though it was getting a lot of buzz, if you posted a lot of stuff on social media, it didn't really get you much. It didn't get your company much in the way of leads or sales. And if you're talking about data and you're talking about marketing, that's what you need to deliver.
Right.
Um, and at the same time, there was a lot of talk about inbound marketing, or content marketing.
Mhm.
And, that also, you would start to blog and you wouldn't really see big results. And yet there were other things that were being left almost fallow, like email marketing, that some people thought of as old school, or do people still do that? And yet email marketing is one of the cheapest, most cost-effective, and most effective forms of marketing there is. In fact, I found a study from McKinsey that said it's 40 times more effective for customer acquisition than social media. And that's been my experience. And so what the Bullseye Marketing framework does, and what the book explains, is this three-phase approach. And in the center of the bullseye, you take advantage of marketing assets your company already has, like your email list and your website and other things, to get really inexpensive, usually quick increases in your leads and sales, in 3 to 6 months. And then in the second phase, you look for what in marketing you look at intent data. Who plans to buy now? Because if you're in the tech field that Acronis is in,
Mhm.
there's a universe of millions of potential customers, but maybe only 5 or 10% plan to buy in the next 6 months.
Mhm.
So how can you identify those 5 or 10% and make your marketing hyper efficient? And then in the third phase, you do very important and valuable brand building and awareness programs like content and social media and videos and webinars and podcasts and and sponsoring newsletters and display ads and other things, which typically don't have a big return in 6 or 12 months, but can have a huge impact over 3 years and beyond.
Mhm.
That's and interestingly, in the meantime, these great studies have come out that kind of affirm the value of those phase 3 brand building programs, but they also say these take 2 to 3 years to really hit their maximum effectiveness.
Right. Right. Tell me about tell me kind of about how you engage. So, in other words, let's say I'm a brand new MSP, right?
Hmm.
I'm technical. I've got my technology, I've got my operations, my service set. All of that is just perfectly positioned and ready to go to support my clients. Um, what what do you do to help me establish my marketing process, if you will, my marketing operations, my campaigns? Where do we start, and how do you coach me in getting there?
So the first thing that I typically do is I talk to 10 or 15 or even 20 of your customers. And I have half an hour to 45-minute or even an hour long conversations with them. And these are non-sales conversations. These are information gathering conversations. And my customers, my clients will, often say, "Oh, we know our customers. We don't need to do that." And yet, invariably, when I come back and report on the conversations I've had, they're surprised and shocked at what their customers are saying, because their only context, their only way that they're interacting with them is to sell them something or to service them. And
Mm-hmm.
if you have a conversation which has no sales goal at all, but is really to find out, why did you choose us? Who else did you consider? What were your most important factors in making your decisions? How much did price affect things? Uh, a lot of other questions along those lines. How have we lived up to your expectations or not? You will find out all sorts of things that you did not know. Let me give you an example. One client that I had was a company that had uh, a, f- you know, several dozen customers. They weren't huge, but one of their customers was probably a third of their income. So,
Okay.
nice to have that big customer, but you don't want to lose that one. Uh,
Right.
and when I was interviewing that customer, and I got to the, why did you choose them? What were your expectations? Have they lived up to your expectations? He said, no, actually, we're not very happy with what they're doing. And if things don't improve in the next few months, we're going to look for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that was complete news to my client. And obviously, they responded very quickly to find out what exactly they were doing wrong and
Oh,
how they could do better. But that would, uh, like the Acronis partners, they were a service company. You would think they would have close relationships with their customers, but they don't.
right.
Um,
We find that, especially in managed services, because, talk about an industry perfectly poised for remote work and a pandemic situation. Your MSP segment of the channel was exactly that.
mhm,
Perfectly poised, experts in remote tools, had the
right.
infrastructure, were already in the cloud or on the way to the cloud. Um, so from a technology and security perspective, the MSPs were perfectly poised for that. Um, when you are marketing, and well, I shouldn't say when you're marketing, when you're working remotely, sometimes the customer, when you're good, doesn't see you, doesn't feel you, isn't having any downtime. Um, they're not having a whole lot of technical issues that take them offline, and so they kind of forget that you're doing any work back there,
They
right?
take you for granted.
Yeah, they totally do.
Yeah,
So MSPs have had to, in particular, work really hard at doing exactly what you just said, making sure that they're delivering value and the client is seeing that value in some way, shape, or form, and
right.
feeding. So I get it. That makes perfect sense. So tell me a little bit about, we've got our Acronis Cyber Summit coming up. We have a ton of good content, much of it wrapped around exactly doing the things that you and I are talking about right now, how to build a better business. What are the things I need to be doing? And that is from sales, operations, finance, marketing, all the different aspects, if you will, of running a business. So tell me about what you're doing. You've got a couple sessions, you've got a panel, and a workshop. Tell me what you're focusing on in each.
Yeah, so the workshop is going to be a lot focused around the Bullseye Marketing approach. And so companies that join the workshop will have an opportunity to really learn this approach that they can apply themselves to accelerating their lead generation and their sales. Um, and we'll be uh, so I'm working out the particular activities and exercises
Sure.
and so forth. So we're a month off at this point. So uh, deadlines matter to me as much as they do everybody else, right? You need to get it done by the deadline.
Right. Yeah. And if it's a month out, it's a month out. No,
Yeah,
no.
exactly. And the
And
other,
all the
sorry, go ahead.
workshop, all the workshop leaders, because we have quite a few workshops. That was kind of a theme this year, um, to, since everything has gone virtual, to try and do something a little new and different. So the workshops are kind of pivotal there. And
Right.
all of the workshop leaders are in the same boat. What can I do with the conference platform? What does that look like? And therefore, that's going to really shape kind of what the day looks like. But are you going to be bringing, not bringing, asking folks to bring certain information or do anything ahead of time, or is this going to be more hands-on? Here's my process. Here's what I've done over the last 30 years that has worked, and here's how you can apply it to your business today. Like,
So one of the things that I'll be doing is applying my 9-point digital marketing scorecard to the people who the companies that register for this. And from
Okay.
that, I'll have a good idea going into the session about their strengths and weaknesses. Uh, and we'll be having breakout sessions, and I can break those up by their program is, because if some company is has barely gotten anything launched, they don't need to be in a session with a company that has a 10-person marketing team and is spending $2 million a year. Um,
Right.
they probably need to be in a session with other like companies, and in the breakout sessions, and I can interact with them collectively at the level that they're at. And we'll be working to make it as interactive as possible. I have not seen all the features of the tool. I hear it's a terrific tool, but certainly, polls and Q&A during the sessions, and the opportunity for people to be asking questions and so forth. In the Boston area, I head up a group called Sales and Marketing Innovators.
Okay.
And for years, we've held monthly physical breakfasts at a hotel in the Boston area. And of course, we've had to go virtual since March. Uh, we just had a speaker in September who, when this all started, I said, we can't meet in person. Do you want to do this through Zoom? He said, no, I want to do it in person. I much prefer in person. Let's do it in September in person.
Okay.
Young and naive back then, right? We thought we'd be meeting in person by September,
Right.
maybe September 2021. Uh, but these events have become virtual. They've become much bigger with, 50 to 100 plus people, and very interactive. And so I plan to bring a lot of that to the summit sessions, the summit workshop that I'm leading. And then the other workshop, the panel rather, is with 3 channel marketing leaders from 3 different companies. And we're going to be talking about what kind of programs can partners take advantage of from Acronis and other software vendors, uh, because Acronis, for example, has some terrific channel marketing programs. They have campaigns in a box and so forth that are really just waiting for the partners to grab them and download them and start to use them. And that is one of the 6 episodes of the webinar series that I'm doing outside of the summit for Acronis, is those programs. And that's something we'll be talking about a lot at the summit as well.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. And kind of one last closing question for you, because I'm curious. The channel, as technical as we are, and as good as your report back is about technologists or technology companies, um, do you work directly with companies, like in a consulting or coaching some kind of way, um, where partners can engage you to help put in the marketing infrastructure and process and procedure and run campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've talked in the past, Amy, about kind of productizing
Yeah.
services, and it's probably an area I haven't done as good a job on, and I haven't done as good a job because companies can be in so many different places, and what they need can be very different. But I do have 2 or 3, like I said, the marketing strategy work, the fractional head of marketing. I have a workshop, a one company workshop that I call a Bullseye Marketing Sprint,
Mm.
which the company leaders spend one day trying to do 3 months worth of work, and committing to a whole plan that they can roll out over time.
Oh, perfect. That is awesome. Well, I am super excited. One, that I got to meet you. I heard a lot about you. And
It was great talking with you, Amy.
yeah, it's good to talk to you too. I'm excited about the summit. you're bringing a lot to the table for our partners. So that is super exciting as well.
Well,
Any
thanks.
parting thoughts or maybe a best practice or a tip you want to leave us with that our partners can start to think about?
Well, this will depress people if I give this tip, but I'll, it is, so in a sense, marketing is like exercise. And just as something, we know that if you exercise, 30 minutes a day, it has huge health benefits. And yet only 20% or so of Americans do that. Um, and we know that consistent, excellent marketing has huge benefits for a company over time as well. But as my survey of those hundreds of companies has shown, outside of the tech space, most companies, most SMBs anyway, uh, aren't doing routine marketing. And so once you develop the plan, once you have the strategy and the tactics, it really is about execution and sticking to it, and knowing that every month will not be the best month you had. Some months will be better, some months not as good. Uh, but that by consistently executing on a well thought out plan, you will get just better and better results over time, and it can have a huge impact on your business.
I can't agree more. That is awesome. Louis, you are a rock star.
Oh,
Thanks for
thank you.
coming. I appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you at Summit. This will be a lot of fun this year.
All right, thanks, Amy. It's been great talking with you.
All right. You take care.
You too.